Welcome back. Here we have the first chapter of the Roman Empire. I let you enjoy and don't forget to subscribe.
In the shadowed streets of ancient Rome, where power was the currency and betrayal the language of politics, a quiet storm was brewing. Born on the 23rd of September, 63 BCE, in a modest Roman household, a frail child named Gaius Octavius entered a world that had no inkling of the destiny he carried in his veins. His mother, Atia, was the niece of Julius Caesar, a connection that at the time seemed more symbolic than consequential. No one could have foreseen that this seemingly unremarkable youth would one day bend the world to his will and inscribe his name in history as Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. Octavian, as he would later be known, grew up distant from the center of power, educated carefully but without fanfare. Yet fate spun a dramatic twist in March of 44 BCE. Julius Caesar, dictator for life, was brutally stabbed to death in the Senate by a group of conspirators who claimed to be defending the dying republic. The Ides of March became not only the death of a man, but the rupture of an age. In his will, Caesar named his grandnephew Octavian as his adopted son and heir. In a single moment, the unassuming boy inherited not just wealth and name, but the burning ambition of Rome's most powerful man. At just 19 years old, Octavian returned to Rome, determined to claim what was his. The city he returned to was gripped by chaos, the air thick with civil unrest. The Senate, broken and bitter, mistrusted him. The streets buzzed with rumors. He was mocked for his youth, underestimated by veterans like Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal lieutenant, and the crafty Lepidus. But Octavian was not to be dismissed. He quickly proved himself more than capable. With cunning precision, he maneuvered through the minefield of Roman politics. In 43 BCE, he formed a tenuous alliance with Antony and Lepidus, known as the Second Triumvirate. This was not a partnership of trust, but one of convenience, forged to eliminate common enemies and stabilize power. Sanctioned by law, the triumvirs held absolute authority, but with it came terror. They unleashed a reign of purges and proscriptions, hunting down those they labeled threats. One such victim was Cicero, the eloquent orator and staunch defender of the Republic. His head and hands were nailed to the rostra in the Forum, a grim reminder of the price of dissent. In 42 BCE, the triumvirs marched east and confronted the assassins of Julius Caesar at the Battle of Philippi. Brutus and Cassius, the so-called liberators, were defeated and died by their own hands. The Republic, as Rome had known it, was finished. But peace would not come. The alliance that held the triumvirs together began to unravel. Lepidus was sidelined, his influence eroded into irrelevance. Mark Antony, meanwhile, drifted toward Egypt and toward Cleopatra. Antony's affair with Cleopatra was not just scandalous, it was political dynamite. Octavian, master of propaganda, seized the opportunity. He painted Antony as a man seduced and corrupted by Eastern decadence, portraying Cleopatra as a witch queen bent on enthralling Roman power. Rome was horrified, and Octavian capitalized on it. He stoked fears of a foreign invasion, crafting a narrative in which he was the sole guardian of Roman virtue against a treacherous duo. The final confrontation came in 31 BCE at the Battle of Actium. Octavian's fleet, commanded by his brilliant general Agrippa, crushed the combined forces of Antony and Cleopatra. Fleeing back to Egypt, the lovers took their own lives in 30 BCE. Octavian stood alone. Rome had no more rivals. For the first time, one man held absolute control over the Roman world. And yet Octavian did not crown himself king. Kingship to the Roman mind was anathema, a relic of tyranny banished since the fall of the Tarquins. Octavian understood this deeply. In 27 BCE, in a masterstroke of theatrical politics, he appeared before the Senate and offered to relinquish his power. It was, of course, a calculated gesture. The Senate, grateful or perhaps terrified, responded by bestowing upon him the title of Augustus, a name rich with reverence and divinity. It was not a title of office, it was a transformation. Augustus meant the revered one. It signaled the birth of a new era, the Roman Empire. Augustus retained the facade of the Republic. He never took the title of king or dictator. Instead, he became princeps, or first citizen, a seemingly humble role that masked his unrivaled authority. He held imperium over the military, controlled key provinces, and monopolized religious power as Pontifex Maximus. He didn't destroy the institutions of the Republic. He hollowed them out and wore them like a mask. The Senate remained, but its soul was gone. Rome had fallen into the hands of one man, willingly. What followed was a reign of over 40 years marked by extraordinary transformation. Augustus was not a battlefield commander like his adoptive father, but he was a master of stability and order. He restructured the Roman army, turning it into a professional force with fixed terms, pensions, and rewards for service. He founded the Praetorian Guard, an elite corps tasked with protecting the emperor himself. He initiated sweeping administrative reforms, organizing provinces into imperial and senatorial domains, implementing regular censuses, and establishing a merit-based bureaucracy. Under his watch, Rome transformed from a chaotic sprawl into a monumental capital. Temples, forums, roads, and aqueducts rose from the earth, sculpting the empire into a marvel of civilization. "I found Rome a city of brick," Augustus would later say, "and left it a city of marble." And above all, Augustus brought peace. The Pax Romana, or Roman peace, began with his reign, a period of relative stability and prosperity that would last for nearly 2 centuries. Trade flourished, arts thrived, and the empire expanded its borders to unprecedented lengths. But power, no matter how well concealed, leaves scars. Not all was triumph. The darkest moment of Augustus's reign came in 9 CE in the shadowy forests of Germania. 3 Roman legions led by Publius Quinctilius Varus were ambushed and annihilated by Germanic tribes under Arminius. The disaster in the Teutoburg forest shattered Rome's illusions of invincibility. Legend says Augustus wandered his palace, distraught, crying out, "Varus, give me back my legions." It was a sobering reminder of the limits of empire. In his later years, Augustus turned to securing his legacy. But succession proved elusive. One by one, his chosen heirs, Marcellus, Gaius, Lucius, died young or fell from grace. Ultimately, he settled on Tiberius, his stepson, a capable but cold figure lacking the charisma of his predecessor. Augustus also took it upon himself to moralize Rome. He launched a campaign to restore traditional Roman values: family, discipline, piety. He passed laws promoting marriage, punishing adultery, and exiling even his own daughter Julia for scandalous behavior. He censored poets and artists who strayed from his vision, famously banishing Ovid for his work Ars Amatoria, though the true reason remains a mystery. His control was total, but not always gentle. On August 19, 14 CE, Augustus died in Nola at the age of 76. According to legend, his final words were, "Have I played my part well in the comedy of life? If so, applaud as I exit." The Senate deified him shortly after his death, declaring him Divus Augustus, a god among men. His ashes were entombed in the Mausoleum of Augustus, a grand monument to a life that reshaped the world. But Augustus was more than a ruler. He was a storyteller. He knew that history remembers those who write its script. Through poets like Virgil and the epic of the Aeneid, he wove a myth linking himself to the divine lineage of Aeneas, son of Venus. He wasn't just the heir of Caesar. He was the fulfillment of Rome's destiny. His reign was not merely political. It was psychological. He didn't just conquer armies. He conquered belief. Today, over 2,000 years later, the world still echoes with his legacy. The calendar we follow bears the name of Augustus. The symbols of empire, eagles, laurel wreaths, marble arches, still influence governments and institutions. The story of Augustus is not just Rome's, it is civilization's. He was the man who ended a republic, not with a sword, but with a whisper, who birthed an empire that ruled the world, who turned politics into poetry and power into immortality. Augustus was not merely the first emperor of Rome, he was the architect of eternity.